Wednesday, October 6, 2021. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A reminder that this meeting is being recorded by MCTV. We'll move to our first item, which is discuss and vote on appointment of interim acting treasurer collector. We have a resume, Mr. Joseph Fleming.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
may I make a statement?
Sure.
Yeah, so I just want to apologize to my peers, Mr. Maresco, anyone else here in the audience, Mr. Fleming, for being tardy. I thought it was at 6:30 and I was going to be early. Obviously, I wasn't, so I just want to make an official apology to the team. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kilcoyne.
No worries.
No worries, things happen, so
well,
we're not perfect. Let's move forward with discussion and discussion with Mr. Fleming. Mr. Fleming, you want to come forward?
Sure.
The front?
Sure. How's the board doing tonight?
Great,
Good.
great, beautiful day today.
Yes, sir.
So we just wanted to, obviously, we appreciate you coming in. As you know, we're in search of an interim treasurer collector, and we just had a few questions for you. I wanted to hear a little bit more about you and your experience, and maybe for the sake of the board, kind of just give us the quick overview on where you're coming from and what makes you a good fit for this position.
Sure, and as you know, I've already had a meeting with you and Michael.
Absolutely.
HR already previously where you guys weren't able to attend. Basically, I've been doing professional accounting and finance work for almost 20 years. Last 5 years, I've been serving as the Director of Finance and interim CFO positions, consulting for large corporations such as Robert Half International, went to Wyman, Planet Professional. I've also did some municipality reconciliation work for the town of Weymouth. As I said to Michael, they were 6 months behind on reconciling their bank statements. Got their bank statements reconciled to the penny. I continued working with my own community for the town of Lakeville. If you look at my resume from 2015 to 2018, I pulled papers and served on the Lakeville Finance Committee, where I got my initial exposure to how the towns and municipalities work in the realm of finance. You know, looking at budgets, working with the Board of Selectmen, sitting through the departmental budget reviews at budget time, being on stage for the annual town meetings, so special town meetings, going through the warrant articles, and giving me a good exposure. So I did that from 15 to 18, serving as the treasurer collector, while still working full-time. You know, I said to the chair and Michael previously, I went to Bridgewater State University. I have a bachelor's degree in economics with a minor in accounting and finance. I also have a master's degree in management as well from BSU as well. But I've always stuck with accounting and finance. I started in 03 as a junior accountant, worked my way through junior, senior, accounting manager, controller, director of finance and interim CFO. My background goes from $50 million to $2 billion financial transactions per year on an annual basis. I've also been in the realms of, I said already, with Local 103, which is a union hall right next to Yale Appliance and Electric, where we were less than 50 employees. We were responsible for five trust funds, a lot of activity, $2 billion worth of assets. We did the pension, the annuity, the health and welfare. Everything was self-managed, the health and welfare claims, the apprenticeship training, all that good stuff. So politicians going in and out of that place all the time. So it was a good union experience for me. But I've always stuck with accounting and finance, and it's one of those transferable skills, especially in the last 5 years, where I go to organizations in their times of need, whether it's budgetary, reconciliation, year-end close, system migrations, cutting over into new systems, training the staff in multiple systems, and basically going in and saying, okay, you know, I have a client currently right now that I've been with for 10 months now. We're wrapping things up, where it was being backed by private equity, merging 3 small companies into one, going through the due diligence process. Their director of finance had retired, so I had to go in there, reconcile their year end, get their year end done, get their tax returns done, do the due diligence involved for the private equity to be funded to get the deal done. Now the deal is done, it's signed. They're bringing in their CFO. I was only there 25, 30 hours a week to help bridge the gap, kind of like where we are today, where you guys may need some help on the accounting and treasury side. I've already spoken to Mr. Rowland and Michael about some of the things that I can offer as far as bringing your system on live, getting it cut over, reconciling out what needs to be, performing the treasury functions that need to happen, closing out your books, getting in, helping with the free cash being certified, getting all your reports timely filed with the state, making sure your schedules of indebtedness and your assets and all that good stuff is where it should be. So I've been doing it for almost 20 years. I enjoy it. I especially enjoy the consulting piece because it allows me to go to organizations and see what systems they use, what processes they use, as well as experience different cultures and mesh it all together. And I'm a problem solver, and I enjoy solving problems, and I'm a numbers guy. So it served me well, and I'm still involved with my town. As I said to Mr. Rowland and Michael, in addition to serving on the Finance Committee, I actually pulled papers and I ran for Treasurer Collector for the town of Lakeville, running up against Deb Kenny, who was in there for 25, almost 30 years. She was tough to beat. I didn't beat her, but I had a great grassroots campaign. Last year, I pulled papers again. I ran for Board of Selectmen against Richard LeCamera, who was well-known. He was the town of Rochester's administrator for 10 years. He's the head of the Lakeville Lions Club. He currently serves and has served on the Board of Selectmen for 10 years. Tough guy to beat, well-polished. Library trustee. I got 38% of the vote, so I've always been, and I continue to build my bases, and more and people get to know me. And I'm still involved with the town. When I'm not doing this, I'm coaching Freetown Lakeville youth soccer, 2 teams, so I'm always looking to help and give back. But I enjoy the accounting and finance. That's my specialty. And to work with the systems that you have in place and looking to put into place and bringing it all together. And honestly, I've always taken my responsibility very, very serious in regards to my fiduciary responsibility to any organization, whether public or private. And that's why I'm here to help you guys, and hopefully you'll see that I can help you guys out in your time of need, whether it be short-term, long-term. That's the nature of my business, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up, Jim.
I am up.
Yeah.
To go for a question, comments? You want me to go for this, for my number 2 question?
Yeah.
So I know you've probably been looking at the town finances, structures, maybe some past financials.
I haven't seen anything of that for the town of Marshfield. It was basically just, you need a town accountant, there's no town accountant, the treasurer collector is out on paid admin leave. That's all I know. I've seen nothing for the town of Marshfield.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I did ask questions in regards to where you guys stood with free cash certification, where you stood with your last month being closed. Obviously, we just closed out September, so I'm sure there's work that needs to be in regards to September. So that's all I've seen, or all I really know.
Okay, so you're not familiar really with the current financial picture of the town, or?
No, I understand that you're in good shape, so that's good to hear. I've seen towns where they're not in great shape, and basically
we've been
cleaning
through that too,
up.
haven't we?
Yeah, and that's where that's where I come in. Tell me what you need to be completed. Tell me what you need fixed and done, and that's
Right.
where I come in.
Sure, that's no problem.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just pivot for 1 second for my question then. I do notice that, you've had a constant progression within your career path.
Correct, sir.
And in 2016, you moved to Director of Finance, interim CFO.
Correct. For the last 5 years, I've been consulting for large entities as well as municipalities, as well as myself and small personal clients as well. So
Right.
yes, I have.
So this goes just to, what you find rewarding in life and how you do things.
Okay, sure.
Working for a large organization, small organization, yourself, consulting. So you've worked 5 years or so now, right?
Yes.
As a consultant.
As a consultant,
Right.
correct, sir.
And
Yes.
so what is your motivator and driver to maybe come and work for a town?
Well, again, I enjoyed being on the Lakeville Finance Committee for 3 years, and that's where I say one of the transferable skills is accounting and finance. At the end of the day, your ultimate report card is your financials. How well are you? How much do you have in free cash or your retained earnings? What's your profitability? I know it's a little bit different on the town side, but how fiscally strong are you? So
Money is money at the
yeah,
end of the day.
oh, that's right. Money is money at the end of the day, and I enjoy numbers, but it's all about process too that help with the numbers. So creating those efficiencies and processes in place that actually help drive that bottom line. I enjoy that. To answer your question, I've worked for big entities. Local 103, huge shop, $2 billion in assets, but we had less than 50 employees. I like the small level of employees. Reason being, why I enjoy it versus the larger corporations, whereas, because you get to make a bigger impact in smaller organizations, and as you grow with organizations, especially as you go higher up, you get to touch so many different things, see so many different things, and I feel like the impact on a smaller number of headcount, you could be having $100 million rolling through this organization, okay? But you're doing it with a low number of headcount and employees. And I like to be a big fish in a small pond versus, say, working for a Bank of America or working for a large entity, because I believe that quality and quantity go in hand. But I feel like being able to go to smaller venues, as far as headcount, allows me to be more involved and allows the entities to leverage my skill set and my experience to say, hey, have you tried this before? Did you ever think about this? And here's why. And that's why I enjoy with the consulting in the last 5 years of just learning to learn and being able to apply those principles and disciplines to many organizations, whether it's a flat organization or if it has its org chart. But bottom line is, people, process, numbers have always been my enjoyment, and it tells a story, because when you have the right people and processes in place, the numbers usually will take care of themselves. And especially in these last few years, you remember the '08 recession. I mean, everything was forced to kind of do more with less and to run lean. And I've actually had that luxury of going through that and making those decisions and going out to borrow and doing more with less. But I enjoy the smaller, versus the larger entities. Okay. And I find that, when I go in and they have the agenda all ready for me to go, I can take the ball and just start running with it. And you start making those milestones, which actually starts getting that organization going where they want to go. Okay. Well, so I enjoy that. That's kind of a passion of mine, is seeing where they are, where they want to go, and where they can be.
Okay. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I know
Yeah,
it was
no problem.
Little twist here.
Oh, that's okay.
But I too do share your belief that defined processes are very important for a highly operating organization.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Steve.
Joe, could you describe your experience with the most recent GASB requirements that are of interest to municipalities?
Okay, so we actually had this conversation with Mr. Rowland and Michael about the relationships and the similarities between government accounting standing boards versus FASB, financial accounting standing boards, versus what's GAAP. And they're all relative in nature. Like for government, obviously you have to follow Mass General Law. That's one of the beauties, I believe, that doesn't exist in private. Private, you can kind of do what you want, right? And you still have to follow protocols for FASB and GAAP. But with government, I think that it's even more stringent, and I like that, because if someone is trying to get you to do something that you shouldn't be doing, you quote Mass General Law. Sorry, Mr. or Miss, I'd love to help you, but it's Mass General Law. So it's all relative. They all have their differences when it comes to reporting, but as long as you check those check boxes and the numbers are what they should be, it's all similar. So it's kind of, hopefully that kind of answers your questions. So you do the year-end tax returns, you do the year-end reporting to the state, whether it's sales or use tax or just your retained earnings or what your revenues were, what you have in free cash, So it's all vanilla chocolate and ice cream, but it's ice cream. Yeah, so. Yeah. But the numbers got to tick and tie. That's where I come in, and the numbers have to be accurate, reported timely, have the months closed timely, cash should reconcile to the penny, as I said to Michael and Mr. Rowland. It's there. The puzzle is there for you to complete, and if it's completed, you're in the good graces of the state, and that's how it should be. Things need to be squeaky clean. So it's all relative. But one thing I have learned in my career is you learn to learn. It's lifelong learning. So as I said to Mr. Rowland and Michael, you know, everything looks a little bit different, but it's all the same as far as how it should look. And again, things need to be ticked in time. And if you have the systems in place and processes in place, you're doing more of overseeing versus break fix. Now, everyone will have to go through their break fix, but you get to that point where it's maintain, build what you want to build, maintain that, and move on to the next project. So, but yeah, it's fun stuff. I enjoy it. I'm a numbers guy, but I'm a people guy, and having that experience of running a grassroots campaign and going through the Board of Selectmen election process and pulling papers and going on the stages has forced me to become even more of a learner of how things operate, because status quo, only gets you so far. So, I enjoy those challenges because you never know what's going to come down the door. You never know. So
based on what you know about this position in the town, what do you feel is going to be your greatest challenge?
Okay, so it is not knowing what has been done already as far as the financial records. One of the things that I have given, that's a great question that I've thought of, was, I'm trusting that the numbers are what they are, but I'm walking into something that I haven't seen as far as the validity of that data, is to basically say, okay, what was the last month closed, verifying that those numbers are good. And then when my comfort level says, yeah, it's verified, whether through an auditing company, I'm sure you have your auditors that can sign off on and say, yep, these numbers are good, I'll be able to continue down that path, because again, the data is there, the supporting documentation should support it, and then things should reconcile out, and that's where we need to be. So it's just finding where that last spot was and then just continuing on. So that would be one of the things, not a concern, but because I haven't seen the financials, haven't seen any reports or any type of, especially from your auditors, one of the things that I like to do is look at the last audited financial statements, see what's in there for discussion and notes, management comments. That tells me a story of how things are being done, and then saying, okay, when is the last good set of data? When are all your receipts been recorded? Is your schedules of debt timed, ticked and tied out, reconciled? Are your assets what they should be? Is all your cash posted? But again, just going through those protocols will tell me that story on my own.
Yeah, and I'm sure if we...
Yeah, it's just digging into the data.
We'd get you up to speed pretty quickly.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I would just say, where's your last clean? And then we just, boom, go forward with that, so.
Great, thanks.
Joe, could you describe your experience with state and federal regulations in your prior position and the steps you took to be in compliance with those regulations?
Yeah, sure. So, I did some work with a company called Gosnold, and they were state funded. So at the end of the fiscal year, they had to report because they were granted money from the state. So we would have to obviously close out our financials, show out all the bank statements, show out all the assets, and basically report that, because then it would be sliced out by department and divisions, and there were like 20 of them. So then they would come in, test it, and then they would match up their findings to what I would report on the state website, and they say, okay, it's good, or hey, there's a slight variance, can you prove that? Yep, here it is, sir or madam, and I say, okay, no problem, moving on. So yeah, so I've been in that for reporting that type of stuff, sales and use tax, 990s, 941s, yeah, so at the end of the day, I do realize that you have your own versions, but again, like I said to Mr. Rowland and Michael, the data's there. It's just being able to check the boxes and put them in the right values, and like I said, I can follow a paper trail, so. And I'm sure you have documents, so it shouldn't be a challenge, so.
Yeah. So Joe,
Yes, sir.
I know you've already, listened to your answers, you've already made month-end closing
Yes.
documents, whatever the right term is for that. So you've already have a fair amount of experience in that. Could
sir.
you just maybe exemplify for us what your role specifically in that activity would be, for whether it's New England Appliance or in your current position?
Sure. And that would be soup to nuts, to be honest with you, sir. From posting journal entries, to reconciling cash, to posting payables, to recording receipts or receivables, to balance sheet reconciliation, to budget reconciliation, to actual versus estimated, quarterly board reports. Basically providing the financial data from soup to nuts so that the board can make the financial decisions that they need to. So basically, whether it was entering an invoice or creating a journal entry or reconciling it, basically every part of the month-end closing checklist. And it's important to have that checklist. And I've seen entities where they just fly by the seat of their pants and they miss big things along the way. So when my job has always been to not only close out the months and make sure that everything ticks and ties to the penny, that come year end, when the auditors come in, then the CPAs have everything they need in the form of electronic documents or the paper backup that says, here you go, let me know if you need anything. And the less time that they spend, that tells me that the good job that we do as far as the fiduciary controls and processes in place, which allow for little to no management comments when we get the year-end compilation reports.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So Joe, how do you keep on top of the latest industry regulations and trends? I mean, how do you use this insight, and how do you use this insight to develop strategies?
Well, I mean, I always believe that, the trend is your friend. Every market is different. But I find that, when companies or entities have good data structures and good systems to be able to get that data, it actually makes your life a lot easier to show, where you should be as far as your realm in the scheme of things, as well as how you're performing against your assumptions. So it's a little bit of Excel systems, trending, watching the news and just kind of see how you all fall. And I believe in controlling what you can control. Control the internal things that you can control. Because if you do so, the things that are happening externally affect you less.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
Could you describe your views on your role in controlling the budget process, say at any of these, and make it kind of personalized to the specific rather than
Sure.
general, your role within, whether it's at electrical construction trusts or appliance or your current position? And then I have a couple of quick follow-ups for that.
Yeah, sure. Sure, so when it comes to budget, we would meet on a monthly basis. And the reason being, the ownership has a big stake in the company. And they want to see where their returns on their investments and their return on their equity is happening, as well as their free cash flow, as well as their assumptions at the end of the previous fiscal year, how they are this year, so they can make those switches and zig or zag where they need be, whether it's labor management, whether it's, are we not charging enough on our goods and services? Are our costs going up? How's the cost accounting looking? Because at the end of the year, you have a 7%, 10% assumption or whatever that may be. It was our job to make sure that we were in that realm so we would be able to prepare for the next year so we can bring on more people or grow our business organically, or like this entity, we merged 3 companies into one that gave us greater purchasing power.
This was
Yeah.
New England Appliance?
Yeah, we actually had, over 100 members, so it was a buying cooperative, and they were basically storefronts, sir. And one of our, as I said to Mr. Rowland, our largest storefront was actually right next to Local 103, Yale Appliance and Electric.
Oh, yeah,
I know
yeah.
you know you can't miss it.
No, so what did you find most fun or challenging about that role?
It wasn't. It was basically not challenging, but it takes a skill set to be. And this board of directors was like 17 or 18 people. Okay, to be able to break down financial data, especially to those people who may be not accountants or financial, they just want to know how much money I'm making, and to look at those bottlenecks financially and non-financially and translate it into and it wasn't a challenge, but to get them to understand. And I find that when you're able to go over that wall, they understand, okay, now I know what these quarterly or monthly reports mean and how my business is affected by it. Because I said to Mr. Rowland, as a buying cooperative, their job was just to be a storefront. So we handled the ordering, the invoicing, the collection of the rebates. So at the end of the year, when they got their rebates from the manufacturers, they wanted to get a big fat check. So when they got those big fat checks, as long as they kept growing, they were happy.
Okay,
So-
that's good. But, I am interested not so much about the money and this and that.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
interested about your personal experiences and how you can describe your personal experiences to me so I can understand that. That's what I was asking for.
Yeah, that's-
So,
yeah, no
so when
problem.
I ask a question like you challenging or fun, I'm looking for your what you bring personally versus another individual to this position. So you kind of what I heard
Yeah.
was you had a diverse group of individuals, and you said it maybe wasn't challenging, but you brought it up, so I was thinking that it was something kind of fun for you, where you had to figure out how to communicate to a diverse group.
Right. And
You'll find that here as well.
which is okay, because I've learned that when you build trust and you build cohesion, and then when you work as a team and you celebrate in those short-term wins and you address those challenges as a collective, everybody walks away like, hey, I feel pretty good. We've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So being able to work in a cohesion, build groups, manage finance departments, and to be able to cross-function. And what I find is the higher you go up in the financial world, okay, the more you have to be cross-functional with other teams, whether it be sales, operations, IT, logistics, other areas of management, and to be able to work with other departments, because it is all one team at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem. Yeah.
Joe, could you
Yes,
walk
sir.
us through any experience that you have with federal and state grants?
Well, federal and state grants, yeah. So basically, we actually try to get funding for our work, for our workers to get them to continue their education, basically in the realm of technicians, where they would have to go back to school, get technical training. So we'd go out and we put, $300,000 warrant, for example, out there. We would get it approved. We'd follow the protocols. We'd get the funding, and then obviously, as we spent the proceeds for those, then everything was okay. Our workforce was able to develop, which made us more specialized in our area, which allowed our business to grow and flourish. So that was an example of grant money. In the private realm of things, there's very limited in grant money. I understand that in the state side of things, if you can show and demonstrate a need, and that they have the funds to do so, then they can allocate. But at the end of the day, protocols need to be met, and the documentation has to support that. So it's basically showing us a need and supporting it, and then hopefully being awarded it. But I understand that there is a process, and I'm sure there's a process here. And again, I'd be able to follow the tracks.
Good.
Good question. Thank you.
Speaking of process, tell me about, I mean, we're aware that you've been involved in a lot of aspects of finance and management in finance. Tell me a process that you drastically redesigned and improved.
Sure.
How did you change the process, and how well was it received from your team?
Okay, so, as I shared with you, Mr. Rowland, is I've been involved with multiple ERP system launches, go-lives, and integrations. And there was always that fear of, like, what's going to happen? How's it going to look? Am I going to be able to understand what the output product is going to be involving system integrations? And basically creating my involvement was to say, okay, board of directors, what are you used to seeing? Okay, how would you like it to be seen? What's comfortable for you to be seeing? And then basically being the accounting and finance guy, I would create everything in say Microsoft Excel. And those reports would format into the way they were used to seeing those things, importing them into the system, designing it, getting it all to integrate with all the other modules in the system. And then at the end of the day, so when we have the board and monthly reports, they said, hey, nothing skipped a beat, everything looks great. But a lot of work had gone in behind the scenes to get it to do what you wanted it to do. My job was to get them what they wanted to see so they could do their job. So that was my involvement as far as bringing over all the data qualitatively and quantitatively, and I enjoyed that because it allowed me to be an author, but it also allowed me to show my skill set. So they said, hey, it wasn't as bad as we thought. Even though there were many late nights and weekends and early mornings, they need to not be concerned with that. They needed to do so it was like, here you go. So it took that fear factor away so they could focus on what they wanted to do. And that's one of the things that I find as I've grown over the years is my involvement at the higher level, working with IT, working with the higher people that say, hey, how do you want it to look? How would you like to change it? What do you like? What don't you like? What keeps you up at night? Tell me. And then just brainstorming and then putting it all together and then being the architect and then say, hey, look at what we got. And then, hey, good job.
Yeah, and I think that's important. You ask what they would like before you began, and so your idea was to do what you need to do to deliver what they needed so they could do their job.
Absolutely.
So-
And that's the goal. And I think that, as a CFO or a treasurer collector or anyone in a higher level, they should be able to take what is the wants and needs and to make it a tangible so that, hey, this is good stuff, and then you start building off of that and you start leveraging the system because like I understand, with Munis that you're going to be going with, is that correct?
That's correct.
You're going to be spending a lot of money on that system, so you want to be
We already
able-
have.
Right, exactly. So you
So,
want to be
yeah.
able to leverage and squeeze them as much efficiency as you can out of that system.
Yeah.
So it's not painful to get the data that you want so you guys can make the decisions that you want to make. And that's where I come in and bridging the gap, not only closing out the books and cutting over, but to create and to build off of the system. So you're getting the return on what you spent. So
Thanks, thank you.
I'm going to ask probably a straightforward, easy question for you.
Okay.
So you have experience with audits?
Yes, sir.
I thought so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when you've conducted audits in your career, what have you found, what aspect of that did you personally find most rewarding?
Okay.
And what aspect of doing those did you find least rewarding?
Okay, in regards to audits, I perform audits for, payroll audits, sales audits, money was missing audits.
Well, that was sales.
But there were financial resources gone missing. So one of the things that I enjoy about audit, as I said, like using the bank reconciliation, it's a puzzle. The audit is a puzzle. The answer is there. And rolling up your sleeves, I enjoy the chase. I enjoy the hunt because it's a problem solving, and I enjoy solving problems and creating those solutions. Sometimes it requires greater long durations, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I enjoy finding that answer because the rabbit is in the hole. You just got to know where to look.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah,
That's great. Good answer. Appreciate that.
no
So
problem.
what did you find that you found the most mundane or least attractive part of that aspect of your
Well, it
position?
really isn't mundane. It's just part of the process, and that's like with your question about my involvement with month-end close is by touching every aspect of it. Okay, it tells a story of what's happening, what's not going, so I can anticipate what the end result should look like. So it's just going through the notions. It's just doing the job. I wouldn't call it mundane.
I appreciate it. And with the approval of the chair, could I just ask a follow-up to that question from his answer?
Sure.
Yeah, so I did notice you did speak about Munis,
Yeah.
and so we are rolling out Munis, and I know you seem to be aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Do you have familiarity with that
Well,
program?
with the town of Weymouth, I had them print out all their reports to reconcile their cash, so they were 6 months behind. So I'm used to what the reports look like and when the receipts, how they're being recorded into the system. So at the end of the day, that's the beauty with systems. They all look a little bit different, but they all spit out the same data. What our trial balances should look like, what our balance sheet should look like, what our receipt deposits should look like, what our expenditures, those types of reports. So I am familiar. However, I can be a valuable resource with connecting the dots to make it go live if need be, as far as leveraging and talking to the IT to getting you to the finish line if it's not currently working and up and running. And that's one of the things I enjoy too is cutting over if need be. I don't know where you guys are in that process, but I do speak the language of reporting because financial reporting is huge in my world.
Yeah, I only bring up once again with the tolerance of my peers. Munis, I think, is a huge financial project for us. It's extremely important that we're starting to go live with it right now. So we've got a lot invested in that, and if it doesn't go out well, the town's not going to do well.
Right,
So
understood.
that's why I'm kind of drilling down on that.
Yeah.
And I understand that all sort of software packages have the same thing.
Yeah.
But they each have a different look. You
They do.
you go from Apple to Android. They're a little different. So I
Correct.
just wanted specifically if you had specific experience with
Yep.
Munis.
So basically, from going to a QuickBooks, going from QuickBooks to an Oracle, to going from an Oracle to a KI Business Systems, from going to a KI Business Systems to a larger system. Again, it's knowing the language, understanding what the finished
excuse me.
product.
The direct question is,
Yes,
do you
sir.
have specific experience with Munis?
Not specific, other than
That's-
yeah,
that's
but
what-
I
that's
but,
what I get-
but
that's
yeah,
all I
no
was trying
problem.
to
But
get
at
out.
the end of the day, I can chase down what
I
needs to be
understand.
chased down.
I have Android
Yeah,
and an Apple.
no problem.
I got it.
Yeah, no problem.
So it was just I just wanted to
no
know that.
problem. Yeah, no problem, Jim.
Because we need to roll that out, and maybe some of my other peers that might want to add to that, on rollout and ability to roll out, and have you had a chance to do something like that before? It is a multi-million-dollar huge project.
I
for
have,
us.
sir, and that was actually
I'll leave
one of
that
the.
to my peers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, and that's one of the things that I wrote down when we met, system migration.
Yeah.
Getting on the phone, talking to the people who need to be spoke to as far as IT or other departments of what it needs to look like, connecting the dots, get it to work functionality in its own module so it all rolls up to be a good finished product. So I have checked those boxes off, sir, in previous experience.
Thank you very much,
So,
sir.
yep, no problem.
Great. Yeah, I think
you,
we're
Mr.
well
Chairman.
on our way. I think we're well on our way on Munis. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of we are talking at this point as an interim position, so
Yeah,
it's just
understood.
where we are and what needs to be executed during that period.
Yeah,
And I
understood.
think, obviously, if we bring you on, that will also be something to bring you up to speed on. But I also agree with you. I mean, I've worked in multiple CRMs, multiple products, multiple operating systems, and it just takes a little time and education to get up to speed if you're familiar
Absolutely,
with those types
absolutely.
of operations. But I also understand Mr. Kilcoyne's concern, so.
Right, and again, it's the process. As long as we're making process and we're getting and hitting those milestones and checking those boxes off, we're gonna get to that desired state. It's just being able to speak the language, make those phone calls, talk to the departments, talk to the department heads, involve the town administrator, where we need it to go, what is it doing, what is it not doing, why do we need it to do it, chasing it down, getting it to work, switching the button on, and then doing an audit of that project to make sure that it's all being taken care of. And it takes time, but, I have no problem rolling my sleeves up and getting involved with that as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bearing with me to take us off the.
No, that's a great point, though,
I do-
Jim. It really is.
I
It
do
really
apologize.
is.
Joe, based on your experience, could you describe some of the nuances and differences between private sector finance and municipal finance?
Well, I mean, there's always a scarcity of resources. People are always trying to get the money, but that's where, the state kind of drives that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they you show a need, they award based on the need. You are supposed to stay within your budget guidelines. You have an appropriation of assets to go X, Y, and Z, no different in private, but you don't want to deficit spend. You don't want to be put in a position where you cannot cover your expenses or cover a payroll or cover what is, capital expenditure projects or what have you. So there's a lot of similarities. There's differences in the way they're awarded, as far as where the money comes from. In municipality, as a homeowner myself, I pay real estate taxes. You get awarded funds from the state, you get grants, and it all goes into a pot. It gets allocated, and that's where the 3 years on finance committee gave me that exposure of saying, okay, how does it all get sliced out? And this is what's in the kitty. Especially with school, with Lakeville, they were a regional school district, and they were always fighting over the assets, and they pulled 67% out of the budget to go to the schools. So there really wasn't a lot left over for the other entities. So they were always constantly, and you know how it is, it's an us and versus them mentality sometimes. Oh, they got this, we don't get that, and you try to keep everybody happy. But it's the same in private too, because there's only so much to go around, and you want to give everything that people want, but there's only so much in that melting pot. So it's our job to stay within the confines of what we should be doing. So as long as we do that, we have a greater chance of not only survival, but flourishing as a municipality or a private entity as well. So it's all about the bottom line. Yes, it is. So, yeah.
Right, so speaking of like municipalities and working and managing in the municipality versus private sector.
Sure.
So explain to me what your knowledge is of your authority to act on your own. When do you need to consult the finance director?
Sure.
And in what situations would you need to seek out our approval or the town administrator for advice and support on that?
Yeah, no problem. And I've always been in those situations of baptism by fire. It just comes with the territory.
Especially as a consultant.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of times, as a consultant, they're not going to tell you what those problems are. It's my job to be
find them out.
It's my job to be a detective and to be that sleuth and to say, okay, if the current team in place doesn't have the answers, that's okay. But to be able to get the lay of the land is what I like to say, and finding out what that lay of the land is, and then going to those channels, whether it be a selectman or a manager or an owner, and say, hey, listen, I'm seeing this. Have you seen this before? And they may say yes or no, and then, okay, well, based off of that answer, we can either brainstorm, tackle it together, or they say, listen, I know you got this. And a lot of times in the realm of finance, I would say, hey, let me show you something. Did you know that? Oh, really? And then we would make those tweaks, and obviously we could backfill it into operations, and we would correct it on the operations. So it kind of works hand in hand. But I've always been in that, there's always, it tells a story. That's why in the financials, as I said to you, Mr. Rowland, I like to look at the last audited financials, what was in there, what wasn't in there, what were some of the comments and discussions made, because that gives me the lay of the land of how operations is doing, because it all falls into the financials at the end of the day. And then saying, okay, given what is here, how does this entity operate? Where does it get its sources of revenue from? Where are their greatest allocations of cash going to? How does this all roll up? And then obviously tighten up where we can. So at the end of the day, there's more free cash. So especially in the world of municipalities,
Yeah,
which would be retained earnings in my neck of the woods or net income.
thanks.
No problem.
Kind of getting towards the end.
Oh, no
Good
problem.
good
Yeah.
Helpful for you, Joe.
Yeah,
and
no
of course,
problem. It's all
There's going to
good.
be plenty of time for you to ask questions of us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, it's all great.
Because I'm sure you'll have those. We've all in our careers had what we'd call decisional successes. And in retrospect, things we may have approached differently, right? Could you describe one situation specifically that you would like to maybe have reassessed and why?
Reassessed. Again, in my line of work, it's always, looking at the big picture globally. And a lot of times, it's not really regret or resentment. It's, because you could always do
No, it's just a
something better.
reassessment. You go,
Yeah,
you
you
know
could
what?
always do
In
something
retrospect,
better. Yeah, I mean, you could
I
always
should
do
have shown
something
up at
better.
6 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, and to kind of comment on that, my areas of not just I have a master's in management, my concentration is on organizational development, which is about people, process, building the skill sets, succession planning, getting your team on board, letting them shine, giving them the chance.
Remember the question.
Yeah. But
The question was,
I don't-
describe to me one situation, right, where you may have approached it differently.
where I may have approached it differently. Honestly, it's hard because at the end of the day, I wish I could have gotten someone's ear a little bit more, or their availability wasn't enough at the board level because they were doing 50 million things. I wish I could have had more time to spend with certain key stakeholders so I could learn more from them. But just because of the nature of the beast, I was kind of forced to just run with the ball, do the best job that I could. And when I would leave the organization, I left that day saying I did the best I could that day. So if I could change anything, would to have more time with key stakeholders and to also be able to have more mentor-protege relationships. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen so many people come and go, especially at the higher level. I'll use Lakeville as an example. The Board of Selectmen was a revolving door. They would get in there, they wouldn't even serve their 3-year term, and it was kind of frustrating, so it's like, that's the thing, you learn to learn, and I wish I could spend more time with individuals so I can learn from them. That may have made the process a little bit easier.
Thank you very
But
much.
sometimes that doesn't happen, so you do the best you can.
Appreciate it.
Joe, you mentioned that you've run for a treasurer collector, you've run for the select board.
Yes.
What would you say has attracted you to public service?
It's just being able to, give back what I've learned over the years and to create, and that's one of the things I enjoy, as I said, is to show the light of the things that I've learned through my career and to allow people to have those aha moments and in a positive way. Because let's face it, everyone learns differently. Everyone may or may not go to school. Everyone may or may not have a higher degree. But the bottom line is, having those teachable moments and to allow them to, it's just an enjoyable experience of being able to give back to the community. And that's why, I'll give an example. Last spring, we'd take my 8-year-old daughter to play soccer for Freetown Lakeville. 8 kids are lined up no coach. Kids are all in their gear. So the director says, anybody want to coach? And I know nothing about soccer. I'll do it, thinking it's for the week. It turned into a 9-week season. But I'll tell you, I had an awesome time. And I'm back in the fall, and I actually teach now my son's coach. So it's just giving back.
That's a nice story. That's insightful. I like
Yeah, and it's, believe me, I felt like Will Ferrell with the ladybugs there. Like, all right, kids, but, learning with those different personalities forced me to adjust and to learn. And I learned a lot from them just as much as I was able to teach them, even if it's just to kick a ball in the net, So,
Yeah, sure.
it's all about giving back, really, so. And I believe in succession planning because a lot of times I've seen that, public, private, equity funded or whatever have you, mom and dad has built an empire. There isn't really succession in place. I like to be able to create that succession planning at multiple levels so they can keep thriving. It's all good stuff. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. But I don't know everything, that's for sure.
Who does, right?
No, really, because, you learn a little bit every place you go. I believe that.
So what kind of questions do you have for us, Joe?
Well, when we met last week, my questions were, was this more of a treasury or an accounting role? I understand there's not a town accountant, and after we were going through, it sounded more of a treasury role, and we talked about system migration, we talked about possible reconciliation of cash, we talked about closing out the months, we talked about all that stuff, which again is my niche. That's what I do, that's what I enjoy. So you've answered those questions. You'd answered the question why the position is available. I don't know if there's been the results have been known about the future of the treasurer collector, or I know that was not really discussed, but that's okay. You answered the questions about approving and signing warrants, so obviously you do have staff in place, support staff.
Absolutely.
That would help me do my job, which will help everyone do their job and to keep going to where we want to go. So you answered that question. You answered the question about, the staff, the handling the banking needs, the state reporting. I had asked about where we were with the combined balance sheet, the receivable recons, the cash recons, the schedule of indebts. I don't know where we are with that. I would like to basically, if given the chance to help you, that would be my area of my initial, okay, where are we? What's going on? Where do we need to pick up from? And then obviously sit with the powers that be and say, okay, what's the first milestone that you want to accomplish? And then just do it. And then just
Yeah.
go right down that checklist.
That's really a question, like.
Yeah,
really
what's
is,
that
where are
ultimate
we?
checklist look like? Yeah.
Where are we and where do we need to be going? And then and make the plan, right?
Right. So basically, what's our action plan? So what are those milestones that need to be hit based off of your area of concern and what's keeping you up at night to say, hey, we need to do this, 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 and this. These are the priorities. Yes, sir. No problem. That's what we do. And then we get those accomplished, and then we keep moving down all those other things you want to do. Mm-hmm. So I would be curious to see what that action plan would look like, and we can work on that together.
Sure.
So that would be basically one of my areas of questions. So,
Okay.
so, yeah, I mean, we talked about the tax rate recap. That's a working in process, right? Working with the assessors, getting all that certified, making sure that the right numbers are set, working collectively. You had answered the question about fall town meeting is planned already. And you would answer the question about how long you anticipate the assignment. Hey, if it lasts a week, a month, 2 weeks, whatever I'm happy to help. That's the nature of my business, and I want to be able to help you guys. That's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
So,
Anything else? You don't have to make up anything. I'm just
no,
asking.
I mean, at the end of the, no, it's just really, what do you need me to do? Yeah, what do you need me to do, and when would you like me to start, if granted?
Okay, any other questions, anything?
So, Joe, if you
Yes,
were
sir.
Will Ferrell, who was your Robert Duvall when you were coaching soccer?
Robert Duvall, I'm trying to remember the movie. I'm kind of a comedy guy.
He asks movie questions more often.
So it was just like
stumbled
I'm
too.
Robert Duvall. I know Robert Duvall in other roles, so I apologize not knowing that answer to that question. But it's just baptism
Is he
by
the
fire.
antagonist? I can't remember.
kicking and screaming,
just
yeah.
having fun with it and just doing the best you can. So it's just that's a good question. Can I get back to you on that one?
Of course, yeah.
All right.
I wouldn't be able to answer the movie question.
Okay.
But there's a core in there that you
Yeah, so you don't.
Yeah.
So I can watch the film and get back to you on
Absolutely.
that
You
one.
got plenty of time.
All
yeah.
right, fair enough. Okay.
I just have one quick one, Mr. Chairman, if I
Sure.
could. So, you seem like a very talented individual. You're articulate. You have the credentials.
Thank you,
It seems
sir.
like you can do the job, obviously, to me. So the question I have is, that means you have a lot of transferable skill sets. Why are you sitting here?
Because I'm here to help, and again.
I mean, why this
Yeah,
job?
well, it's funny because, again, I'm in the business for consulting, and my name has been bounced around of, hey, I know somebody, hey, I have a person that has a need. As I said, being involved with the town of Lakeville, I've gotten to know a lot of people, and just because of the work that I've done, my name gets out there, and I found out about this position through Jamie. And Jamie had reached out to you, and this is all referral business. It's all about networking. As
Why
I
did you
said.
want to embrace it?
Because I'm up for a challenge. I'm here to solve a problem. I'm
Okay.
here to help bridge the gap. That's what I do.
All right. I
And,
appreciate that.
Yeah, so, I'm
That-
here.
that's-
I'm
that's
here
a
for
good,
a reason.
passionate answer.
Thank you. Thank
right.
you.
Thank
But
you very
no,
much.
it's about it's providing a service in a time of need,
Okay.
and that's really what it's all
I
about.
very much appreciate that,
No
because we are
problem.
a time in need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, Joe, I really appreciate
Joe.
you coming in.
No, thank
You know,
you.
I know you spent a pretty good amount of time with our HR director and Mr. Moresco, and now coming in and speaking with us. I mean, you obviously, you have the credentials, you look very good on paper, and I feel like, I mean, like Mr. Kilcoyne said, I appreciate your passion to help and your passion to bring your skill set to the town. So, I mean, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Joseph Fleming to interim acting treasurer collector effective October 6, 2021, pending a background check.
Not a problem.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Congrats.
much. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome
very
aboard.
much. I won't let you
Welcome
down.
aboard, Joe.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
All right,
We're
thanks.
really
Thank
fun
you.
to work with, just so you know.
I
Way
appreciate-
more fun than working with Michael, I'll tell you this.
Oh, man. This
Thank
is
you.
a
for-
public meeting.
We have a great team. We have a great
Well, I
team.
appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to working with the team. I
All right,
really, really
thanks.
do.
We're looking
Thanks
forward
so
to,
much.
look forward to you having you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more action items. Thanks, Joseph.
Okay,
were
thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph.
All right,
A couple
thank you.
more action items for this meeting. The next is discussion and vote on a local declaration of an emergency for allowance to deficit spend under Chapter 44, Section 31, to support the vaccination effort for initial and booster vaccines. Obviously, we're putting the shot clinic together at the fairgrounds again for booster shots, and we're going to need to front a pretty good amount of the money up front for the staffing and the shots for this. But Mr. Musk, if you want to talk about
Yes, thank
the
you,
amount
Mr.
of
Chairman.
money.
Yeah, just very quickly, this particular language is one that the DOR likes. So I know anyone watched our meeting last week, we did the
Right.
declaration of emergency. This just adds a few other additional words in it the DOR likes to see. And this allows us to deficit spend, which is unusual because normally the state doesn't like you, but under this section of the law, 4431, they allow you to deficit spend for a specific reason. After we do, the board votes this, like with the emergency, we send a copy of this with the minutes to DOR, and then they sign back that we're allowed to deficit spend, because in order to get ready for the clinic, as you talked, we need to cover the salary, overtime salary of the firefighters that give out, the paramedics that give out the shots, the tents, we need to cover food costs, medical supplies, the fairground rental, all of those costs. And they allow us to do that, and then we get reimbursed from the insurance for the shots at $40 per shot.
Yeah, and it seems like the reason they're allowing this too is that it allows us to, spend the money, serve the people, but ultimately reimbursement will directly match the need based on the location. So, versus them fronting the money and then us spending, what we need, we're spending what we need in advance and we're basically being reimbursed. It's just a different way to look at it.
That is
so,
correct, Mr.
yeah.
Chairman.
Any other questions or concerns about this?
No.
No.
All right, so the Board of Selectmen hereby moves to authorize the Town of Marshfield's Finance Department to deficit spend in anticipation of reimbursement from insurance and Medicare agencies, MEMA and FEMA, under Chapter 44, Section 31. Further, the Board of Selectmen authorizes the Town Administrator, with support from the Finance Department, procure goods, that's a number, that's a word for me, and serves for this effort and cover overtime cost and personal costs directly related to the vaccination effort. Further, the Finance Director shall notify the Department of Revenue of this board's actions.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and finally, we have discussion and vote on a request to route the Ragnar Relay through the town of Marshfield on October 23rd, 2021. I'm very familiar with this race. I have friends that do this race. It's a 200-mile race across New England, and they would like to have a portion of this race go through Marshfield. So I know that they've already met with Kevin Filer, Officer Filer, our safety officer, and he is okay with it as long as, and he would recommend the following conditions: signage placed along the route warning motorists of the runners, because there is actually runners and vehicles for each team. And the police detail at the intersection of Highland Street and Main Street to assist with traffic. So, I mean, I think this is an excellent event. It sounds like they have all their ducks in order. I have no questions.
No questions.
Any other further
No, it
questions?
sounds like a great event.
Great. So the Board of Selectmen moves to approve Ragnar Relay through the town of Marshfield on October 23rd, 2021, pending sign-off from the Marshfield Fire Department, which they haven't had yet. So,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Meeting adjourned.